Gonna get straight into this, man. I'm not doing no intro. Today we got the Canon R5. I'm so excited to review this camera, to show you what we've been doing, to show you all the great work we've been working on with this camera, man. So I'm just gonna give my thoughts and opinions on it right now. Canon R5 does 8K at 25 frames per second. It does 4K at 100 frames per second, 50 frames per second, and 25 frames per second as well. And it does 1080 and 720. So, but mainly we've been shooting, the last 3 to 4 shoots we've done have all been at 4K, mainly shooting at 50 frames per second, just so that when we're editing, because they've been music videos, you never know what we might use for slow-mo or what we might use for a performance scene. So we shot most of it at 50 frames per second with a shutter speed of 100 to give us more flexibility in the edit. So yeah, and then if I get into the 8K review now, the 8K on this camera is quality. It is quality, but the downside is that I recorded for about 30 minutes and my SD card was full. So, and the size of the card was 512 gigabytes. So 30 minutes for 512 gigabytes is crazy. It's crazy. So for economical purposes, we chose to shoot at 4K and avoid shooting at 8K. And also with the 8K, the camera has a tendency to overheat. After about 20 minutes, we had issues with it. It was overheating, so we had to literally like pause what we were doing and let the camera cool down so that we could continue to shoot. So 8K with the R5, it's a good feature on paper, but maybe that's something that Canon would like to improve on in the future with this camera. But for a camera like this to have 8K, you can't really complain at the end of the day. It's got 8K and 4K at 100 frames per second, so I can't complain about that, you know. But if I'm being picky, then those are two things that I have to say about it. But when you're shooting in 4K or whatever frame rate or whatever resolution, it also shoots in Canon C-Log format, so you get the raw footage. So that leaves you a lot of room when you're editing to mess around with the colors and really create the effect you want. So that's a really good feature, and as you'll see, you might pop up on the screen here. It might pop up on the screen where you see some different shots that we've taken using it with the raw version and the color graded version. So also it has the Canon Live Assist as well. So if you're not really comfortable with shooting C-Log, then you could use the Canon Live Assist, which shows you, it gives you basically a rough idea of how it would look if it had like a standard grade on it. So you could get more of an idea of, it basically helps you expose your shot better, so you'd be able to pick your settings more accurately to the scene. So yeah, that's another thing that I really enjoyed about this camera, the Canon Live Assist, and it shoots in C-Log raw footage format. Man, I gotta say, the autofocus is crazy on this camera. Like, combined with this lens, the 35mm lens, quality, outstanding quality, even at 4K at 50 frames per second, where some cameras that I've used in the past struggle to get the accuracy right, especially if I'm moving around a lot, which you might see me in music videos do to get different types of shots. So the autofocus was a very big selling point for me, so for this camera, and so far it's been amazing. So you'll see some footage pop up where we're testing out the autofocus at 4K and maybe even at 8K, depending on how long it takes to edit. So we'll try that out as well. But the autofocus, quality autofocus, and in-body stabilization as well. Yep, that's quality too. You could turn off or on the stabilization, but when you turn on the stabilization, it does crop it just a little bit. So that's one thing that you have to bear in mind when you're filming. Yeah, when it's on auto stabilization in the camera, because it's a full frame camera, you wouldn't see that much crop, so very minimal, but it's just something to be aware of when you're filming. Yeah. So the R5 also has a great ISO range. You can go from 100 to 51,200. So imagine that. That's a great range there. So if you're shooting all daylight, you can bump it all the way down to 100, or you can zoom it all the way up to 51,200 if you're really if you're really struggling with light, you can do it. But you know, if you've seen the previous video that we did about the ISO settings, then you'd understand how to maneuver those settings depending on the type of scene you're shooting.
Link in description, man.
Link in description, yeah. Check it out. And don't forget to subscribe as well, yeah, and leave a like as well. Boost up the channel to see updated with new tutorials that we're doing. Alright, cool. So now, part 2, yeah. So now we're here again. We're talking about the R5, and we're going to talk about how it's good for photography. So, you're going to see some shots pop up on the screen of the different types of shots that we took with the R5. It's windy right now, so I'm just having to speak up even more louder. So, I'm really happy with this camera for photography, man. The dynamic range is amazing. It's so great. So I've got no complaints about the Canon R5 for photography. The dynamic range is great. The colors are great. It shoots RAW and JPEG, so you've got the option to play around with it after you start editing them in Lightroom or Photoshop or wherever you edit your photos. It's great in low light for photography as well. So now I'm going to talk about battery life. Now the battery life on this camera, I gotta say, it's good. It's really good. So I say we done a 5-hour shoot. In 5 hours we used 2 batteries, and we was also conserving the life of the battery as well. So when we wasn't shooting and we was planning shots and talking about ideas on set, I just switched the camera off and that's it, and it saved the battery life, you know. So I think each battery lasts about 2.5 to 3 hours if you conserve it right. And I think it might also depend on the frame rate you're filming at as well. So if we're shooting at 8K, don't expect your battery to last 3 hours. That's good. So yeah, but we were shooting at 4K. So we were shooting at 4K at 50 frames per second, and we got 3 hours battery life out of it. So it's really good for that. And you're gonna see some examples of streets of art, Gymplicity, and so the Canon, which they're famously known for, has got their flip out screen. As you can see, you can flip out this way, you can flip out that way, you can bring it in and turn it this way as well. So on the gimbal as well, because it gives you that flexibility to, you know, change it in. And if you want to connect it to a monitor as well, you could do that because it's got the HDMI cable here. There you go. And then you got your headphone jack and your microphone to connect your sound equipment to it as well. So overall, I gotta say, this camera is a beast. It's man, one of the best cameras I've used, and it really is. It's a cinema camera. It's cinema quality camera. You can get really stunning cinematic shots. So now we've got the button layout. As you can see, it's if you're used to Canon, then you'd understand it. So you've got here, you've got the off and on switch. Simple enough, on and off. Then you've got your screen viewfinder, and then here you can change your settings with the menu, and it's got touchscreen as well. That's another thing I like about it, touchscreen. So yeah, you can change your settings here, your camera settings, all different type of settings you can do here, and ways to make your use of the camera more efficient. So you've got your, it will tell you your info here. You could also, right now there's no pictures here, but you use this wheel to change in between pictures that you've taken to, you know, you can scroll in between different shots. And you've got your delete button there and your play button, and you can choose the different mode. If you press mode, you can change it from photo to video mode so easily, so quickly, and just so easy to use. This camera is really easy to use. Yeah. And how you take a photo as well, which is the main thing, is here. There you go. So you just press that button and it takes your photo, and if you want to record, you press the red button to record. Easy. So simple. So for photography, I give this camera a 10 out of 10. That's a perfect rating for me. I got no complaints for it for photography. And for video, I gotta say, this camera, it almost gets there, but I give it a 9 out of 10. The reason why I give it a 9 out of 10 is because when we're shooting at 8K, it does have a tendency to overheat, which delayed our shoot in a way, because after 20 minutes we had to let the camera cool down for about 15-20 minutes so that we can continue our shoot. So at 8K wasn't the best, but at 4K it didn't overheat once, and we were able to shoot a lot. We were able to get 2.5 hours battery life out of it, and it done us justice, man. It done us justice. Quality camera overall. So yeah, there you go. All the content that we've been shooting on for the past few days have been shot on the 35mm lens, 35mm RF lens. And one more thing as well, its body is a RF body. So if you want to put a EF lens on there, then you will need an adapter. But we did shoot a few of them using the 16-35 as well. So it really just depends on what you're shooting and how you want it to be shot as well. That's the review of the Canon R5. Quality camera. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to use it, send us your vids, send us your thoughts on it as well. If you've tried it out, let us know in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, subscribe to stay updated with all the latest content we've got on the channel.